Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about CSS alignment. When I'm talking about table alignment, we're going to talk about CSS text align property. Now, this text align property is used to set the horizontal alignment of the content in your headings or your data. So basically, we use these not for the entire row. We use these only to align the text to the left or right, depending on the data. So, which content you give the data? You give the data to your th or td tags. These are the tags that will contain your text element or your text that you will be displaying on your table. So these two elements are the ones that you need to apply the text alignment. The next we're going to talk about is vertical alignment. The vertical align property will set the vertical alignment like top bottom of the content in the th or td. Now these CSS styles are also applied to only the tags that contain the text values of your table. These are going to be your th and td, and you can have the look at here that these set the vertical alignment to the top or bottom for your tags. So let me share the screen for you here. So you can see over here that we have a table over here. And in this table, you can see that the height of the table is 50 pixels and the vertical line is at the bottom. That means all your text content would be at the bottom of the table. Now let me take off this height and I'm going to quickly show you how does it look. So when I take off the height, it doesn't really make any sense over here because we don't really have any kind of space to move around the text. So make sure you add a bit of a height for your table so that you can clearly view the text. You can see over here that the vertical alignment of the text at the bottom. Now these alignment only affect the text content in this element tags. Now also I want to show you guys with the padding. So let me give it the padding and let me give 70 pixels of padding and let me run the code. And you can see over here it doesn't really bring it to the bottom. So make sure you add only the height so it doesn't really bring that content. So make sure you add it with the height. So over here we got what is the default horizontal alignment for content inside the TD elements. The default. The default is the left. Now we're going to talk about styling. Now when I'm talking about styling, it's usually the padding. The padding that you add around the text content, you can simply add padding to TH and TD. Now to create horizontal dividers for a table, you need to add border bottom property. Now border bottom property, let me show you. This border bottom property, we've already added it to when we are creating the tables in the initial videos. We've already done this. We've already tried adding the border borders. Now you can see over here that if you are adding borders for only the table, it will not affect the elements. It will not add borders automatically to the elements of the TH and TD. So you need to separately add a border for TH and TD. Now in this case, we didn't add any borders, any side borders, we just added the bottom ones. So we do not have any dividers for the columns, we only added the dividers for the rows. Now we already know how to hover a table. We simply use the CSS selector hover onto this TR element. This is where you just move over the TR and make it hoverable. Next, we're going to talk about zebra striped tables, where we'll be using nth child even or nth child odd to add a specific background color to a specific table rows. We've already covered this in our last videos as well. Now you can see over here, we're also styling the heading tag alone to make the table pop out, make it look like only the table of the to separate the heading and the rows of the table. Drag and drop the correct CSS properties to set the padding and alignment for TH and TD. So over here you can see the padding is set for this one, and we're going to be setting up the alignment. So we don't really use vertical align. So let me just, as I just mentioned earlier, that we shouldn't be using it. We'll be using only text align. Otherwise, it doesn't take any effect on it. And let's talk about a table being responsive. CSS responsive tables. A responsive table will display a horizontal scroll bar if the screen is too small to display the full content. You can see over here that the table is not enough to show the entire thing, so you got a horizontal scroll bar. Okay, so how to do this? Now there is a property called overflow X to set the div element property to auto. So what it does, it actually wraps the entire element in a div container and gives you the scrolling bar. Okay, so we'll see this over here. So you can see over here, this is the x-axis. We have axis, so if you want to talk about. We have the y-axis. Let me show you. We have the y-axis. This is the y-axis, and this one is the x-axis. Okay, and you can see over here that we got here overflow x auto. Okay, a responsive table will display if the screen is too small. So you can see over here that it is not small, it is able to display everything, but over here you see it's becoming too small, not being able to display everything. Now let me just take out this one. So when they say that you need to add your table inside a div class and use overflow property, you can see over here that this scroll bar is added for the entire page and not just the table. But if you just want for you to add that to the table side, then you do want to use this. You want to take the div, and then you want to take table container, because that's what the class name is. And then you need to do overflow x, if I'm right. Oh my god. Wait, let me see. Overflow x. Yes, overflow x. And I'm gonna set it to auto. Oh wait, just a minute. You can see over here that the scroll bar, instead of adding it to the entire page, they simply added it to the table as well. Now when things are overflowing, automatically a scroll bar will be attached whenever things overflow the page. You can see over here that the content is overflowing. That means you do have content in the down below, so you are adding a scroll bar but to the entire page. Now when you want to add it only to a specific element and you do not want the entire page to be scrollable, then you can simply add it to inside a div container and set the overflow x property to auto. Okay, then we got some other options as well. And how can you make a table responsive using CSS? Using the CSS to make a table responsive, you need to make sure that you wrap the table inside a div with overflow x auto. Okay. Yeah, to make a responsive CSS, this is how you do it for a table. But let me show you what happens if you do not include this div tag. Let me run the program, and you can see over here, if you don't include the div tag, then simply the scroll bar will be added to the entire page. You will be scrolling the entire page. Okay,